now, mates, lend an ear.
Hear us now.
Captain Franz at the helm so steer. Gather round the partnership's deck.
Scripts command.
Tales from the leaders of the partnership train. So we chant by the podcast glow. Through veritable seas to boxes flow. Dar dive. Hoist the sails.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Partnership. My name is Franz Treff, and I'm super excited to have Maximilian Stein with me, who is building out the Startup Partnerships program at Fireworks AI. And before that, Max worked on Microsoft's AI commercial team, where he scaled AI go-to-market through a partner-led approach. So I'm really, really excited to talk about two things that I'm passionate about, which is AI and partnerships. So thanks for joining us, Max.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Franz. And I also love, the intro song. I love how you made that.
Also AI generated.
I can tell.
Generated, it's over a year old. And recently I tried to create a new intro song for a webinar we're doing an Opus clip. And it was wild.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to redo the song because it's gotten so much better, like Suno and Udio and all.
Yes, Suno's awesome. I love their product.
So much. Yeah. It's really crazy what you can do with $10. But yeah, talking about AI, I want to give the audience who is watching live and then also listening to the podcast afterwards just an idea of what Fireworks AI is. You were in the news recently, but I'm sure a lot of people still haven't heard about Fireworks AI unless they're really deeply into the stack. So can you just give us a overview of what the company does?
Yeah, happy to talk a bit about Fireworks. So at Fireworks, we specialize in inference of open source models. What really put us on the map is we're very, very low latency with very high throughput and really cost efficient of using these open models. So think of a Llama, DeepSeek, Kimi, Qwen, you name it. We're the day zero a lot of the times of these models on our platform, and we make it really easy for developers to use them directly. And then thirdly, what we've really been pushing into, which really excites me, is driving accuracy out of these models. So through a lot of these different types of fine-tuning approaches too. And so what we always kind of hammer, it's the speed, the costs, and driving the accuracy of these open models. And you've seen such a great influx of them, especially this past February during the Lunar New Year. It's been really impressive to see that. So we make it really easy to use them for any type of developer, startup, and enterprise directly.
Awesome. It kind of goes into my first question, right? We want to talk about startup partnerships, but when you go on the Fireworks AI website, you guys work with Cursor and Notion, Perplexity, other companies as well, like Opus ourselves as well. So I would be curious, you came in to build out startup partnerships, but then there are so many large companies and well-established players already using your tools. And so, from a high level lens, what kind of company should build, a startup program, and why did you decide to double down there versus spend more time on those really large customers of yours?
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, we're very focused on the enterprise customers. Fireworks supports the whole kind of gamut itself. We have a whole large kind of enterprise team that is really supporting there. And then also I'm of course focusing and driving a lot on kind of the startup segment itself. And I think one thing that we see really powerful and what we really kind of share is your model's your moat, your model's your IP. And I believe this a lot of let us help bring kind of the rich data of users and kind of products and bring that to create these more specialized models for those given types of tasks. At the end of the day, everyone's using a mixture of models. You can have a really kind of performant for a specific task or use case itself. And with that in the enterprise, a lot of people share 90% of the data sits within the enterprise itself. Let us help tap into that to create all these really kind of specialized and nuanced models itself. And then kind of on the startup segment, and what I've seen a lot, of course, kind of on the tuning piece is that everyone's using a closed model in some way or form. How are you going to really differentiate your product? A lot of the innovation is stuck to a lot of the kind of closed labs. Like, how do you bring that stickiness of what you're really building and creating those differentiated products? And that's what a lot of kind of like our startup program is helping kind of support different startups building in the space to create these differentiated with our incredible kind of engineering team to help support them along the way. So we're both in kind of both senses. We'll, at the end of the day, we'll meet our customers at any point of where they're at, and kind of that journey itself too. And it's been awesome to see. I know you've mentioned, yeah, Cursor. We have and like Notion and DoorDash and such. Like, it's been really awesome to see like the power of these models can serve any different type of application.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, right? Because I think a lot of people don't really realize how good these models have become. Like I recently
Yeah,
saw in the news that in Congress there was like a testimony where they said that 80% of startups are now using open source models, which is kind of crazy because as a consumer, you just kind of like pay for your ChatGPT or you pay for your Claude or whatever, and you're like, well, I have a good idea of what's going on because I know what ChatGPT can do, I know what Grok can do, I know what Claude can
yep,
do. Then there are all these other models that are like on the market, which are actually very, very powerful. Some of them you can even run on your local machine. Like I tried Quen for the first time
yeah.
last week, and it was pretty interesting to see just like what's kind of possible on that side. It's just opening up this whole world, which is a blind spot for a lot of people.
100%. I think like one thing in that, and you see this a lot kind of in the startup side, and um, if I was a founder as well in this space building in AI, I've actually started some other kind of startups in the past too. With you just need like whatever model to build the product and ship the product at the end of the day. Like, and I totally get that. But like as you continue to grow and scale, two things of the pain that you feel is, especially as you get more of a larger user base and there's a lot more traffic to your application and the product that you built, latency becomes really critical. People don't want to sit and wait for a response. And then secondly is like when you actually start, I think this is the year we're really going to start seeing the margin piece of like, how are you actually, are you getting margin? Is this product actually profitable? And so you don't need like an Opus 4.6 to write an email. Like you can have a different type of model to focus on a different part of like the agent journey itself. And so that's where I see a lot of kind of these startups kind of not just us, but in general, like turning to these open models. Because again, you can get a lot of that cost, performance, and accuracy just out of the box. And you're going to keep seeing it. There's such a commoditization in the space, but it's always kind of like neck and neck as it kind of continues through benchmarking. But from where they are today, from even the closed models in the past, they're still kind of exceeding that type of work. So it's been really awesome to see that and more kind of that adoption directly too.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because I think everybody was pushing what's possible, and now that like a lot of people start having an idea of like, okay, I feel like I know what's possible with these models. I spent $5,000 on credits last month. Maybe let's figure out like how to get that down. Like I can't spend $5,000 in every person. Like maybe we kind of cut that down
You
to
kind of,
a couple of $100 or something like that, right? So
yeah.
I think that efficiency is going to be more important.
There's a cool way we're actually kind of doing that, and for listeners or such, my LinkedIn's here. Feel free to reach out. We're actually trialing this thing called Developer Pass to make it really easy for developers to start just seeing the power of these open models. So seeing the influx, of
Yeah.
course, with OpenClaw and Claude Code, people are realizing like they're burning tokens, and it's becoming the usage is just becoming really expensive into using. But we're making it easy to give out of like Kimi 2.5 for people to kind of just test and start using to see. This is more kind of for our own personal project itself, but showing like these open models are really, really great. They're really fast, and getting very kind of similar outputs too.
Yeah. That's awesome. I want to talk about more about open models once we get to the end of the show. But I want to make sure we
No,
get
you're good.
covered at the partnerships bit, right? And
Yeah,
so one thing I love about like folks who like were former founders and then moving to partnerships is that they take like a very like entrepreneurial approach to the partnerships programs they're building. So when you joined Fireworks, like what were like the kind of things that you would do on your first day, and like what are the things that could go wrong that you tried to prevent, or like what are the things that did go wrong when you're trying to build out a startup partner program?
yeah. So I think the startup program is one piece of it. There's a lot of other kind of facets I do across the board at Fireworks as well. But I think, of course, anytime joining a company, organization, or team, you got to go on your listening tour. Got to
Mm,
keep your ears close, really learn all of the different parts of the business, kind of the pain points, what's working, what's not working, where kind of the gaps, and really to kind of fill in from. And so, I mean, that's always most important. It's just asking great questions and just listening deeply. and then digesting that and coming kind of with an informed point of view. And so I think kind of early on, I think one, it's been incredible. Like we have such a great developer base and PLG product itself. So many people are feeling that and using it in such an easy manner. But like, how do we really double down and win that mind share across like developers and startups building directly? So really kind of like understanding that, like, what do startups really need? And today everyone's giving credits. We're always, of course, happy to give credits too, to make it easy to start just building and experimenting. But what we've seen too is like, we have such a just strong technical engineering team and background. And again, as I shared too on the tuning piece, we've seen it time and time and again with so many different ways and different use cases. With that, what I think really shines is like, let us help you build. Let us help you kind of go through that journey and create these differentiated products. So like having that really kind of dedicated support for the different startups that are building with us, we want to help them kind of through that journey as they grow. And then secondly, there's always the operational piece kind of in the background that you always need to manage well on kind of the data side, the acceptance side, kind of automating. I know Franz and we had a great conversation of like, how do you kind of help use AI to really kind of streamline a lot of this type of process? I think that's also been really important in kind of building kind of the foundation, the flywheel, so we can onboard and bring as many kind of startups to work with us, and we're happy to help them and support them through their journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to double click into that more. I think like before we do that, like one thing which I think is really interesting, right, is like because you're an infrastructure layer and a lot of startups build on top of you, I think like a startup program is like a slam dunk, right? But there's probably a lot. There's a lot which can go wrong just because like I think a lot of companies could start a startup program as well, which might not be the best fit. Like one which comes to mind is like previously I was at a company called Hopin, which did virtual events. And we were thinking about a startup program. We didn't build it at the end, but we were thinking about it. But the reason why was just because we were a startup and we really wanted to work with our startups. Like there wasn't like a slam dunk like ICP fit on like, you know, what like this is going to work. You know, like startups are like the way to go for us. It was just more like, you know, we really wanted to work with them. And I think there's like some temptation to do that, right? Where like, you know, like probably your engineers want to work on cool tech, right? And so they want to like help these startups, but then you know, it's probably not scalable for your engineers to sit down with every single startup which joins a startup program, right? So how do you balance that like excitement from the team to work with startups versus the reality that like a lot of startups are probably not going to spend a lot. Like if anything, they're asking you for credits, right? So how do you build that like scalable startup program?
I mean, there's all kind of different sides of it. So of course, there's like some will always go really double down, bring an army team to kind of really help support. But no matter what, I mean, I think we have really great resources and kind of documentation and making it really easy to use. And so I think to of course kind of scale that quite a bit is I always kind of make sure to kind of touch upon any kind of the startups to learn what they're building, how we can help, what resources we can provide. So I think a lot on kind of the scale side is quite a bit on like the documentation, kind of support there directly. I mean, too, like we always have some sense of like communication. So we're always, and especially me, I'm around the clock and just kind of checking in if there's anything really kind of like needed, but then also using other tools and AI to help kind of support that too. So you can actually do it in a much kind of more scaled fashion. But I think, yeah, it's depending kind of on the different stage. Of course, no matter what, will help a customer that's always or startup that's always kind of in need. But then again, it's also building a lot of that material mind share to also help support them in doing it in their own manner through their own kind of journey itself too.
Yeah. So with that support material, I guess the idea is then like, you know, there are like different ways they can like, you know, fine tune models and stuff like that. And like instead of like having engineers sit down with them like one by one,
Yeah.
like you actually have like materials or I
Mhm.
assume webinars and these kind of like scaled approaches. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you feel like works better than something else? Like, you know, do you feel like in the age of AI, it works better to give you a blog post? You can just put it into your LLM and then they digest it? Or do you think people still want that hand holding or like events or what do you think like works pretty well?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple. So I was talking one piece kind of not just the blogs, of course, everyone kind of has blogs, but it's like actual like technical documentation and tools and like actual
Yeah.
code of like how to work and use with. And then secondly, I mean, I run a lot of our kind of our communities and event space. So I'll actually shout out next week. We're doing a really awesome event with Vercel and Exa on the agent stack itself and how we all serve
Yeah.
different parts of the stack, us on the inference, Exa on search, and Vercel on the gateway SDK and vSphere as well.
Yeah.
So there's all these different types of ways where we always want to help bring people into a room to actually kind of showcase that. We've also done a lot of great fine tuning workshops in San Francisco and New York and different types of cities, and doing a lot more of these guided workshops to do this on a much larger scale to get people's hands on keyboards and actually really seeing what it really means to tune these models directly, and also just kind of the powers of the models itself. And then I'd even say too, like planning some of these hacker nights or hackathons, just seeing what people can build with these open models. And then of course we'll always have like people there to kind of help kind of guide and support. So I think there's like one side, it's like, since startups are everywhere, it's not just like in the Bay,
Yeah.
it's everywhere, like ensuring that we're providing the right resources to help them as they're building. And then secondly, is like that in person and all these kind of different types of workshops that we really kind of host to make it easy for people to build with us.
Yeah. So interesting, right? Like for especially for that enablement piece, like it seems like there's either breadth or depth. And like,
Hmm.
breadth could be like 1,000 blog posts. Like it's never been this easy to like turn out blog posts, right? And so you could technically like put out all this documentation stuff like that. But it seems like what people really crave for is like depth, and like especially for like somebody who is in the infrastructure space. Or so like, they become activated, they see it, they start building with it, maybe they become a big company one day, right?
Yeah,
And so it seems like, like those in-person events are like crucial. Um,
crucial. And then yeah.
yeah, go for it.
Oh yeah, and then also as we continue to grow too, even kind of like virtual events too, making it just easy and always kind of passing our recordings. And we have some other really exciting work to make it even more powerful that of course you can't hear just today, but it will be really cool
Yeah,
just to again to support more, not even just startups, but any type of developer in building with these models. So it's something that we're really excited to even double down even more on.
yeah. I'm curious, like, I saw you're hosting the event with Vercel, like, and others like next week, right? And I also saw like, you guys hosted events with Y Combinator or for Y Combinator founders in the past, right? And so like, how do you think about startup programs like partnering with other startups or like with other scale ups like Vercel or like tech companies versus like VCs, which kind of have like this pool of startups to work with?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's at I one thing I love is like partnering with a lot of these other core startups in the space. We're all building in different types of ways, but at the end of the day, everyone's using one of our tools in one way or form. Like in the era of building, especially these startups that are just AI as a core part of the product itself and the actual application. Um, Everyone needs kind of a piece of each of these different parts of the stack. And so I think us kind of supporting and doing a lot of the work with some of the other companies that I just mentioned and others has been kind of really exciting. And then secondly, as I kind of shared earlier, even so we did like a awesome YC enablement. We're sponsoring the YC after party tonight, actually, for kind of demo day, which is really exciting. But YC companies are also
Awesome.
feeling that too. Like as I was sharing earlier about the cost, the margin piece, and the speed piece, and like everyone's thinking of like how can I make my product faster? How can I make my product faster for like my users and such? Like and that's where we really kind of come in and shine to really help support them in building with that. And I think that's across the board with these like open models itself. And so at the end of the day, even with the VCs, YC, any kind of across the board, everyone's going to feel that pain in some way or form through their journey. And we want to be there early to help them understand that. And then secondly, when they're there, like let us help. We want to help them kind of build around that too.
Awesome. I think it goes to like another question I have is like, you just mentioned YC, you're sponsoring the after party, right? Like I have friends who went for YC. They told me like they get like a lot of interest from different companies who want to work with them, right? And like some of them even like rent out yachts and say like we're gonna have this yacht
Yeah.
party and all kinds of stuff, right? Just to get the attention of these companies, right? So did you rent a yacht, or like how do you get the attention of like a YC or like a large, top tier VC in the Bay Area?
I think, I mean, that's great. I know a lot of people always try to find different ways, and man, being on YC is awesome. Like you get so much clout from all these other kind of different types of companies. Um,
Yeah.
I think for me personally, it's just like, yes, this is like we're building all this great stuff, and it's supporting a lot of startups, but like deep down, I'm just genuinely curious of what people are building and like how they're challenging the status quo and going after other different type of applications, use cases, and markets, and just being deeply curious and kind of seeing that. And that's honestly like, and then through that you find different ways where you can actually kind of help support. But like deep down, that's what I really kind of love learning a lot from kind of these YC companies, and they're excited, of course, of what they're building too. And then I guess getting into the mind share, it's again, as I shared earlier, like all startup community is all pretty tight and close. So like if there's ways we can support or if other companies kind of support us, like always kind of coming in and helping each other out. And then there's always going to be other fun ways. We have some other fun things kind of in the works of like how to, I guess, of course, like capture that attention, but to create in a much more comfortable, easy environment and kind of connecting with one another. Yeah, there's a kind of a bit across the board, but at the end of the day, it's just awesome learning more of what the YC companies and a lot of kind of these VCs of what these companies are kind of building and just seeing if there's a way that we can be part of that journey with them too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that continued investment is probably really important, right? Like, the yacht party is probably pretty cool to get attention, but like how
Yeah,
much value does it actually drive? Like ultimately, like, maybe people join, but then, you still want to have like the value, you still want to actually use the tools. Like I've been to sales dinners and stuff where like nobody ever talked about the company. And I was like, I don't even know who this is. Like, I don't even know why they sponsored this. Like they just paid my dinner and that was it. Right. And so
get the
it's
meal.
probably more about the long-term value you can provide and like, the competitive edge you get from like working with fireworks versus like just having a flashy party or like
100%. I
whatever.
think it really resonated. We did this awesome kind of workshop with the recent YC batch, and it was around that about your models, your moat, your models, your IP. Like, how are you differentiating your guys' products? How are you thinking through this? Like, the innovation cycle, like, and you probably feel this too, Franz. Like in the space, is that like one, we're building, we're supporting, there's so much in the day-to-day job, our own personal lives, but then also just staying ruthlessly focused of what's going on in the market and the industry, all these releases of models and applications and all this such, and staying close to that. Everything is changing so fast every single week.
Yeah.
And so and it can completely disrupt any type of business at any point, no matter what, being a startup or even an enterprise at the end of the day. And so like that's why we really believe of like creating these differentiated products with kind of these two models. And it's been awesome to see that too, kind of with like these YC companies. And I think it's kind of resonating. It's like, wait, the model could just kind of replace quite a bit of like the application itself. And so like, how do you
Yeah.
create that level of stickiness? And so yeah, I think it's been interesting kind of see that, and it really resonated quite a bit with the YC companies and workshops that we've done with them.
Yeah. That's really awesome. Yeah. I wonder like how do you cut through the noise though? Like I feel like, we just talked about yachts and like cool workshops and new models released. And there's like so much going on and I feel like people are so overwhelmed, right? And so it probably feels really important. Like if I were a CEO, I would be like, yes, let's do something with YC. Yes, let's do something with like a big top tier VC in the Bay. Let's do a workshop with Vericel, right? Like these are like just like important signals. But how do you like actually measure like if the startup program is driving results versus like, just exciting like for everybody to work on and like probably all the engineers and stuff want to be involved, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think um, big focus is quality, not quantity at the end of the day. Is like, how do you create these really great quality experiences where people really walk away with something like that aha, like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. Oh, I didn't see it that way. And that's also for me when I'm attending other stuff on the flip side. Like, I love those moments where like, oh, I didn't realize you can do it, or and you walk away thinking of things differently. So I think that's just like one piece. Like, there's a lot of these different types of things to do event wise, building wise, but it's like, what is that intention? And so that's one side of it. And then second of like, how do you kind of measure the success? Again, it's just, I guess, quite a bit of kind of like usage, seeing, and just kind of growth with these companies as they grow. We help kind of support and grow with them, and so just kind of staying close and seeing, of course, like kind of measured of just signups and such. Just seeing how that continues to grow as well. But I think at the end of the day, it's really like that human aspect and really that quality piece where you really bring a lot of those kind of learnings kind of after. And again, that's kind of dependent on the type of event itself too.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Because if you're the guy who sourced Cursor or something like that, and then all of a sudden they blow up and like within a year they're like a giant customer, like I think that's probably gonna validate your thesis of quality over quantity. I'm curious then, like, for criteria to join a startup program, like how do you think about that? The reason why I'm asking is because I recently had a conversation with a friend and they have like a startup and it's like I think they're like around 5 million ARR or so. But they got rejected from a startup program. I believe it was HubSpot, but I don't want to be misquoted. But the rationale was like you didn't have VC funding, so that's why you don't get the startup program. Like there was like discounts and all that stuff, right? But he was kind of like, bummed by it because he said like, well, we probably have more AR than like most VC backed startups that are part of the program, right? So how do you differentiate that, like in terms of criteria, like who should join or like who should apply?
Yeah, I mean, at any point, kind of in the pre-seed seed, like we want to help kind of on the early journey, kind of the infancy side. But of course, like want to ensure that we're supporting like startups that are building, not just kind of mom and pop shop or just like back in the garage, kind of like tinkering. We're excited as they continue to grow to kind of help support. So, yeah, no matter what, at any point, we'll always kind of have a touch point, kind of with these startups, just to ensure and just learn more, just kind of see where we're at. And as I shared earlier, like that deep level and kind of right of support that we can kind of provide to them. So
Yeah.
no matter what, we're just staying close and kind of just learning more to see what exactly kind of the use case and kind of what they're building, and seeing how the great use of these models that we have in our platform can help enable there.
Yeah. Oh, we have a couple minutes left, and I wanted to touch on one other announcement you guys had, which is like your new partnership with Microsoft, which is super exciting because I guess for you it's like a real full circle moment because you worked at Microsoft before. So how I don't want to talk too much about that because I know it's probably sensitive and so forth, right? But how do you feel like it's different building out partnerships at, Fireworks, which is like Series C startup, right? And like you kind of come in, build out startup partnerships from the ground up versus Microsoft, where you run the AI BD team, you know, using a partner-led motion to scale AI adoption there.
Yeah, I mean, they're very different. Being at one of the largest hyperscalers and the largest companies in the world, and man, it was so much fun. I love working at Microsoft. Love the teams and everything that we're able to kind of like build together, and really set an incredible foundation and kind of point of view quite a bit in the space. And I mean, yeah, they're very different. At Microsoft, you have an army of teams to get things done, which can make it fast, but it can also make things slow, kind of at times. But like that's kind of a bit of kind of on the corporate side. But it's still incredible, kind of the pulse, the market of what to see kind of in the space. And then also you're just surrounded by the most brilliant SMEs of any type of facet of any type of subject in the space. And so I think that was really awesome to kind of see. But I guess in startup land, like the ownership's really on you. Like you really, it's everything's really kind of, it's very that independent. Like you, of course you have a team to make things happen, but like that ownership and that level of success is really dependent on how much you kind of really lean into it. And so both very kind of like different, but also really kind of complement each other well. And so it's, yeah, it's driving a lot. There's a lot of kind of ownership, the speed of kind of releasing things, and like that level of iteration and just constant looking at data. How do we kind of pivot? Is you just have to stay so close and fast to it, especially of how the space is. But it's been really exciting. And then also on the Microsoft side, just very excited of the partnership that we kind of have with them closely. And it's, yeah, it's a bit of kind of a full circle moment for me there too.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things which, I talked about with folks who did the switch from like big tech to like, startups or like scale ups, right? Is always like also the variety of like inbound versus outbound, right? Like I think if you're Microsoft, like people will want to talk to you. Like if you hit them up, they're probably like, yeah, I'm gonna chat with Microsoft. I want to see what this guy's up to, right? Versus like for a startup, it might not be necessarily always the case. I assume
Yep.
now with Fireworks, like you probably are of a size where folks do want to pick up and like understand what's going on, but it's probably not the same level as like a Microsoft where
Oh
they
yeah,
want to
I
chat at
cannot.
like of course sure because
That's
yeah.
yeah, that's a great point. I mean, yeah, Microsoft, there's always an account person for any single type of person or any type of company. So you can always just knock on the door like, hey, can I chat? And of course, everyone wants to chat with Microsoft, and it's such a great brand and company itself. And so it's fun though, also in startup setups, like how do you get creative in kind of that
Mm,
outbound approach? How do you grab that attention? And it is quite a bit more of a work kind of to make it happen, but it's a ton of fun as well
yeah.
too. And then again, at the end of the day, it's still for me, it's really just learning how people are building, what they're building, the problems they're solving, and like just staying endlessly curious to kind of learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. We have 1 minute left, so I wanted to give leave room for a bonus question, just because we talked about open source models, and I'm like deep in this like world as well right now, just like trying to figure out like what is there beyond like Claude and Open AI and others as well. So, what do you think is like the most underrated open source model right now that startups are not using, or that you feel like people are sleeping on?
I think it's getting more attention and it's not being slept on as much anymore, but I still really need to shout out Kimi 2.5. Man, it's an awesome model itself. And the performance has been really great for any kind of really just general task. GLM5 from the ZAI team has been great too. And a lot of these kind of coding use cases, it's been really wicked fast and just awesome to see. I know you're probably asking for one, but I'm just giving kind of a bit of the shout out. Just all these different models are different for different use cases. And then, of course, Minimax, their models have been really, really awesome. Of course, the Quen family too.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think all of them should kind of be used in any way or form, but I think Kimi's been pretty solid as of recently.
Yeah. Well, if somebody wants to test it out, like, is the best approach, I guess, like to like see if they get their hands on Fireworks credits and test it out, or like run it locally.
Yeah,
I've been trying Quen
yeah.
locally. It's been cool, but it's been like it takes a moment.
We don't do
point
much
of
on kind of
latency.
on a bit on the local side. So yeah, you can easily just test. We have a open API spec. You can easily just swap the API key kind of with with an open AI model and just try it out and kind of just see itself. And then if you're interested in the startup program, happy to kind of paste kind of like our nomination form and to help give out kind of credits to start just tinkering with it quite a bit more.
Awesome. Yeah, we are at time. Max, your LinkedIn is in the show notes, and so if anybody wants to reach out, like they can just check the show notes of the show. And if you're watching the show live, I really appreciate you taking the time. You could have been anywhere, and you chose to be with us, which means a lot to me.
course.
And otherwise, we'll be back soon with another episode of Deep Partnership. See you
Awesome.
then.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it, Franz.
Hark now, mates, lend an ear.
Hear us now.
Captain Franz at the helm.